disproportionately affect new students. And as was kind of discussed in that previous meeting by Megan Hyen, we have to draw a line somewhere. And so for me personally, tonight, this is where I draw the line, and that's why I drew the line last year. This is where I think it's got to stop. We can't continue to punish students for our broken budget model and for our broken tax model in the state of Kansas. A line has to be drawn somewhere, and this is where I draw it.
And Dean Dawson made it sound like this is a $15 fee, which yes, we are only considering a $15 fee. But once this passes, if it passes, that's a total of $99 per credit hour that each student's paying. So you also have to look at the impact of the total 99 versus an 84. So that's something to take into consideration.
I'd say one of the biggest takeaways I got out of that meeting is a question that I think Megan asked about the vote that was taken. Students in the College of Engineering voted thinking that this was a department-wide fee, not a college-wide fee. And that's something that's really sticking with me because Dean Dawson oftentimes talks about all the students that voted, how it was a 2-to-1 margin, 2/3 of the college voted, but they didn't know they knew what they were voting for, but this proposal is not what they voted for.
Yeah, and I'd actually like to expand on that because I had 2 points I wanted to make, and I already made one, and Ryan segued me straight into my other. I think the survey was flawed for 4 reasons. The first being specifically for computer science, at least, because as was stated by Ryan, this was a separate departmental fee when it was first presented to the College of Engineering students. So for those that aren't in the College of Engineering, it was presented as computer science was going to have a computer science fee, architectural engineering was going to have an architectural fee, and all of that money would stay within your department. And the way that they presented this to us is that each of the department heads came in and interrupted class time to come into our classrooms and tell us why they needed more money. But then at the end of their presentation, at least for computer science, said that he wouldn't be taking any questions and he was going to be having a separate time to take questions, which only about, I don't know, Olivia was there maybe 8, 6, yeah, okay, yeah. I thought even less than that, but maybe 20 max students showed up too. And at that meeting, at least the computer science department head, I asked him point blank, is this going to be a one-time fee or is it going to be a recurring fee? He said at this time it's only planned to be a one-time fee, which has turned out to later be not the case. Dean Dawson is back to his original plan of hiring all 35 faculty that was originally planned like 5 years ago. And then finally, the survey itself, I wish I had a copy of it with me. It has a full page of text about why this fee is very important and why the College of Engineering is going to fail if we don't have this fee. And then at the end, it says, what do you want to vote for? Do you want to vote for the fee or not? And for students that don't have any idea what's going on behind this fee proposal, who aren't in these meetings and who aren't meeting with the dean and aren't meeting with the department heads, they had no idea what was going on. And they just randomly checked yes because they were told in class by their department heads to vote yes. They were told by their sheet that they literally voted on that they should vote yes. And now, as Ryan said, this is not even a departmental fee anymore. It's a college-wide fee. So I think at the very least, that survey that so many students voted yes for, I think it should be completely thrown out personally.
Might I address the department versus college fee? Each of you are in different departments. The fee came to me as 8 different college fees. So I think there was not misleading you. That's what was sent to me. But it was the same amount of money per student credit hour over each of the departments. And I said, that's silly. I'm not going to take 8 department fees to the Board of Regents. So I will take complete and utter responsibility for it being a college fee, although it was presented to you as a department fee.
Yeah. And I think even if it was departmental fees, I think my first 3 points stand untouched. I think that only really covers the 4th point, which to me, I think that if Dean Dawson really wanted it to still be a department fee, he could easily calculate, oh, this is how much was generated from BAE and allocate it in that manner based off of student credit hours. It wouldn't be very hard for him to do that math.
Chase, what was the question you asked Dean Dawson today? Because I remember I wanted to say something to that.
The question I asked it was in regard to something we talked about last week, about if we did increase the fee now, a fear we had, which is a very rightful fear, is that if we increase a fee now, then 10 years from now or whatever from now, that the fee might not be needed, like we might have more funding from the state or whatever, that fee would still be there. Like we are agreeing to a fee right now that who knows when it'd be taken away. So I asked him what his perspective was on rolling back fees that we didn't need, or if we got more funding, if he would reduce the surcharge or anything like that. That's the question I asked him. And his answer kind of seemed like he just rolled around it, and I wasn't really sure what he said. So like if he actually answered the
I
question.
wanted to make sure that I wasn't the only one who felt that way about his answer. He sort of like tiptoed around the fact, well, in a hypothetical situation that it was written into a clause of this fee, we might look at like removing this fee if we get more funding. It was like the gist of his answer. It was very like tiptoeing around the fact that he'll probably never get rid of this fee.
He actually kind of just said, like, when we have this, if we get money back, we're not getting rid of the fee. We'll just have an overall tuition cut. So the fee is still going to be there, even though the cost, he was trying to make the argument that it'll be a university tuition reduction rather than a department getting rid of the fee. So the fee will still be there no matter what.
But what he always complains about is the fact he always blames President Myers. He says, President Myers does not give me the budget I need to run this college. That's why I have to ask you guys. He always says President Myers. He always blames him. And so if President Myers were to give him money, then this fee should go away, right? Without tuition moving. If he gets $20 million block, I think is roughly what he said he gets. If that went to 25 million, would he get rid of this fee? I doubt that. Because honestly, like if I was in the same boat and I had all this money coming in, like, am I going to get rid of it? Like that's more money for me to run my college. It's more money to hire faculty. It's more money to provide a really great program. But the thing is, we need to look at who's paying for this, because we're already paying our tuition. And I personally, when I came to K-State as a student, and I sat with my parents as a senior in high school, and I budgeted out my next 4 years at college, and I looked at like all the fees, and I looked at privilege fee, I looked at housing, I looked at food, I looked at tuition. I did not look at college specific fees. And I know that's on the website, but it's at the very bottom, and it's got a little asterisk, and it said, you're in the College of Engineering, your fee is this much. And since then, since I've been here since 2013, it has gone up substantially. So we need to take into consideration people that budget their 4 years or 5 years at K-State, because, well, this is a big change to that.
I might throw out two pieces of information just to kind of add some context to a couple of the most recent points. First off, talking about reviewing fees in the future, there is a process in place. Jack and I are working this year to improve that, to make sure we're reviewing fees, that they're doing the job they're doing, and not just accruing money for the dean to hang on to. So there is a process in place to review those. And then also, secondly, about if Dean Dawson got more money from President Myers, would he get rid of the fee? And I think he's said pretty clearly that with his 5-year plan, he has a certain number of dollars that he needs to get to. And I struggle to see a situation where President Myers gives him all the money to take care of all 5 years of the plan. So I think at some point we're going to have some. If we do get more money, it's still going to be a mix of money from President Myers and fee dollars in order to reach the level of funding that Dean Dawson thinks the College of Engineering needs.
As a reminder, President Myers doesn't have a tree in the backyard where all the money grows. So,
yeah.
And President Myers isn't the only one to blame. It's just he's an easy person to sign that rule.
Yeah.
he's not being stingy.
At the end of the day, everyone wants the college to be successful.
I have one question kind of regarding that. So in the history of this model of TFSC, has there ever been a fee that's been reduced after it's been put into place? Okay. So I think that probably answers your question.
Back. What about architecture, planning, and design? Didn't they decrease theirs when they were out at what they affectionately call
They stopped
APD West?
it.
They stopped it.
Yeah, they didn't increase it, right. It has not been. Now, the committee has made a recommendation to decrease it before it's implemented, but after it's implemented, I'm not aware of any fee that's been decreased other than privilege.
I might also add that most of our fee increases that TFSC considers have come in the recent times since the state has started making cuts to higher
Yes.
education. So kind of more of the fees have been in response to that, and we haven't seen any movement there.
Was there any more discussion about needs-based scholarships on last Tuesday? It was hard to get here, and it started out talking a little bit about
Pretty much just the Carl and Mary Ice family scholarship is what he discussed. He said that he might have a few more dollars when Dr. Bosco's office goes 50-50 on the Putnams. So might open up a little bit more.
With needs-based scholarships, the Carl and Mary Ice Scholarship does not require that the matching donor specify need. It only says this is one of the things that we recommend that you maybe specify. I don't know exactly what the results of those have been. I think he only mentioned that there were like 4 of those active right now. Yes, Dr. Bosco shaking his head. And it seemed as though Dean Dawson was focusing in on first-generation scholarships, and that there was no concerted college effort to allocate money in the future towards needs-based scholarships outside of first generation. That being said, first generation historically and statistically has a higher financial need, but there's nothing done for the other students that might exhibit that financial need. Also, we've had a lot of points like against the fee. Maybe we can also hear some things that are maybe positives about the fee.
I guess one perspective on that note that I'm still sticking with, that kind of just sticks with me, is I've talked with a lot of people who, one, can't get into classes because it's full enrollment. They get waitlisted and can't get in, get pushed back with graduation, all this stuff that are problems that we don't have enough faculty. And the place that this fee really stemmed from was sometime earlier this year, we had the budget cut that just immediately ceased 7 searches we had for faculty, which is a really tough position to be in. And when we are already having problems putting in all the classes that we need for our current level of students, for us just to say that we're not going to put in any more money to try and get those searches going or to get more faculty kind of feels like we're leaving the system out to dry. We're like leaving our faculty out to dry. We're not growing our departments any when we have the option to try and do that. I just feel like for the quality of education for the students that are here, it really is deteriorating more than you might think. It really might have a bigger impact than you might think to have less faculty or to not be trying to get the money to get those faculty here. That's kind of what's sticking with me.
The point I keep trying to bring up is Dean Dawson addresses that issue all the time. And then the solution he gives to it is to get tenure track faculty and instructors, when we could have a smaller increase in fees, only get instructors, and solve that problem. And I understand that there's a lot we lose when we go instructors instead of tenure track faculty. But if we're looking at those problems, which are too big of classes, students not getting in, that is solved with instructors more so than it is with tenure track faculty. We're looking at research and we're looking at all the development and the procedure of the university. Yes, we need tenure track faculty, but we need to look at that problem as well. I feel like we're trying to solve one problem with a not perfect solution. And I tried asking Dean Dawson if he would be open to just instructors and a smaller fee increase. And he told me that he doesn't. Do you really want to tell me how to run my college? Was the gist of it at the pizza. But in my opinion, maybe we do. Maybe. But looking at students and trying to balance that out. I'm not trying to say I'm more qualified than Dean Dawson to make that decision, but maybe a recommendation.
Can I ask a question of the administration in the room? It sounds as though the students are having trouble getting into classes, class sizes. That's a challenge over in engineering. So that's a valid concern. A concern I have is there is no push to help support students outside of first generation who are on the bubble financially, and the efforts to retain students in that in the College of Engineering. So is there anything we can do to say maybe like we agree that there is a need for additional instructors, tenure track faculty, whatever it happens to be in a college, but it's important to look at financial need, not just allocating money to first generation students and then forgetting about the rest of those students who are on the bubble financially. Is there anything we can do other than just say something?
Let me start, and we have Dr. Bosco and Vice President Bontrager in the room. The amount of scholarship dollars available in the College of Engineering is limited because of commitments that have been made to students that are here on a number of scholarship programs, most notably the Putnam program. When the Carl and Mary Ice gift was given, it's quite recently, so it's a matching thing, so they're trying to get people to give to that, to set up scholarships to assist students, and with no strings attached. It doesn't have to be merit, it doesn't have to be need-based, but it could be identified that way. This campus has taken a stand about first-generation students to assist them. We have about 35% of our student population is first-generation. Don't quote me, but it's around that amount. And so I think the dean has said that's an area he would like to really emphasize. I can't speak for the dean, but I can speak for myself. I wish we had a whole lot more scholarship dollars to assist students. Then you have to begin to prioritize. And we have made commitments to students that are already here. Some of you are sitting in this room, and students that have been admitted with Putnam scholarships that we will obviously take care of. But that has taken up almost all of the scholarship money in the College of Engineering. It's taken up more than all of the scholarship money in the College of Arts and Sciences. They're running a deficit in their scholarship accounts because of commitments that have been made that we will stand by. Absolutely, we will stand by those. And we just had a meeting recently to help Arts and Sciences work through that to find other scholarship dollars. So it's really not that you don't care about other students, it's how do you prioritize students with need in a situation when you are constrained? And I would say that for almost any one of the colleges, not just engineering.
Also add, this is not supposed to encourage a vote in one way or another, but a couple of weeks ago I had a conversation with a member of the Engineering Advisory Board, group of alumni, specifically in the fields of like the core study of engineering, and he had kind of asked me, looking back a year, like why was there so much opposition to the fee? Actually, I said, why were you so opposed to the fee? So I was going to answer. But it was a good conversation that we had, and kind of explained why, talking about the impact on low-income students. And he said, well, I wish we knew more about that. Like, I wish we knew more about that issue, and said that he wanted to hear more about that. So I actually set up a time. Jonathan and I are going to go present to the advisory committee here in April. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't solve the problem. Like, I'm not saying that, but there should be some sort of reception as to that's an issue. Mm-hmm. So to just answer Stephen's question about what can we do, I think that there are some things. Try what's up.
I just think that's really indicative of Dean Dawson's nature throughout the whole process.
I agree.
I think 2 meetings ago when he put the impetus on us for not liking research and not supporting the university's mission of research, I think it's all a part of his plan and how he wants to get this fee to pass. And I mean, I told a lot of the engineering students this last time when I saw them after the meeting. It's not that I don't think you guys need it. I really think you all need it. And I feel bad for the situation that's in the college, but under no circumstance do I want to support a fee that's been passed through by a dean that's manipulated students time after time and who vehemently disagrees with the mission of the university. And it's made me super uncomfortable to watch the College of Engineering go through it because it hasn't been done in a diplomatic way, I don't think. And it puts people like me in a hard spot to where we support the, obviously we want all of the College of Engineering to succeed and to have the resources that you guys need to be successful, because I mean, I have it pretty easy in the college business, and getting into classes is really easy, and I can't imagine what that's like and what it's like to have the environment that you do have there. But when it's done in this way, it just makes it super hard and cumbersome to want to support the fee. So
I was disappointed that there wasn't any conversation with the advisory board beforehand about the needs-based scholarships. That's why I said, well, I'd like to bring it up. So I heard. Go ahead.
It's not an easy discussion. Need-based scholarships versus merit. It's part of the academy. And if you get, whoever you bring into the room, there's going to be pluses and minuses to both. We're short lots of dollars for our students across the academy. Not only are many of our bright students are also have tremendous needs. So it's a complicated issue. It's needing more dollars across the academy. But I'm not going to be helpful. I think your discussion is really very important. There are times in my 40-plus year career where I stop and say, wow, I'm so impressed with student government at our school. This doesn't happen anyplace else. The discussions you're having are tough ones. The vote you're taking is very, very difficult because you have a great deal of ownership and you put a lot of time and energy in. So regardless of how the issue comes out, I'm very proud of the fact that we have student government at our school, and it defines the character of our school. And I appreciate your ownership and your commitment to making things as best we possibly can during some very difficult situations. That's part of our culture. At 6:30, I'm meeting one of our donors who is all in on need-based scholarships. So I want to make sure I make my appointment and make sure she understands how important these discussions are.
Don't be late.
Everyone knows who that is.
Thank you.
One point I would like to bring up is something that I've said at a couple meetings before, and I just think it's really important, and I think it's something that we all need to consider. And considering today's the vote, I'm going to say it, and you might have heard this 2 or 3 times by now. But as fees keep going up and as tuition keeps going up, student loans and Pell Grants do not go up. Those are locked in place by the federal government. So yes, there's the Parent Plus loan that you can get if your parents co-sign onto that, and that's a really scary situation that a lot of people do not want to get into. So I'm just looking at subsidized and unsubsidized and Pell Grant. Those 3 do not change, at least they have not since I've been at college. So those are a set value, and tuition has gone up since I've been here, and fees have gone up since I've been here. So if you're saying, wow, that's a really great return on investment in my College of Engineering degree, and yes, I will say it is, and in 1 year, I will work and make enough money to pay off my entire College of Engineering degree. But if I had the option to pay it off 5 years after I graduate versus at the same time, I would obviously choose 5 years after I graduate. That's not an option. So we have to look at accessibility and not so much return on investment, because sometimes those money sources are kind of like scary little things that you have to get co-signers and your parents involved, and there's all this weird stuff to get access to that money that students are less comfortable doing rather than the Pell Grant and the subsidized and unsubsidized loans, which you can take out yourself and you're taking full responsibility for that.
So I'm hearing a lot from the caucus, not hearing as much from some of the members representing the college. I guess everybody's representing the College of Engineering. From ESC of the like, I guess Chase. What other, yeah.
So I'll start by, I guess, representing the graduate students. Not sure that there are many here. But when I talk to the graduate students, there are very few people who will oppose this, mostly because in our experience coming from other universities in many cases, we don't really see this as something that's like not an option to do anymore. Because a lot of us come from universities with more faculty in one sub area of a field than our entire department. Like my water engineering like group of the quorum of professors there at my old university was already bigger than our entire civil department. And we figure that as graduate students here, the value of our degree is just so tied to the research that just middling there is just not good enough. And then our value goes down. And especially because these graduate school rankings disproportionately affect your overall university ranking, this is something that we feel that we cannot compromise on for this fee. It pretty much like, it's just, if you set this to graduate students, like most people would pass it straight away because, I mean, to be honest, there's no way that we're going to improve or even stay at the same level if we don't increase. That's how we're seeing it anyways, so.
I kind of echo the same thing in that I really agree with a lot of the arguments they're having, a lot of the points that are made, but a lot of it kind of seems like an idealistic viewpoint to where it's not really considering what happens if we don't pass it, or if we just stay stagnant with our funding while going down on the other side of it. It means that like we really do go down in quality. I know I've said that before, but I just really want to echo the fact that there really could be very big repercussions to the college, each of the programs, if it doesn't get more faculty to help run it. I think this directly correlates to that.
So I asked a question at the pizza thing, just out of my own curiosity. The price of a degree, an undergraduate degree at K-State is about $50K. I come from Cal Poly Pomona, where I got my undergrad. It is a non-PhD granting university. Its only job is to really funnel people into industry and have masters for people from industry to continue getting better and improve in industry. Tuition there was about $50K for the entire 4 years. So, or the degree, let's say. So we're trying to essentially fund a university up through the PhD level on about the same amount as schools are that don't even grant a PhD. And just putting that into perspective, like that is an impossible task. Like just the pressures that I feel when I'm writing for grants and stuff, like you can't put that pressure on every PhD student or master student and expect the same quality, which disproportionately affects our ranking. So that's why we feel, as the graduate students that I've talked to anyways, which is mostly civils, we feel like it's just not sustainable for us in this community.
On that note, I would take a look at the average income in California versus Kansas for graduates in civil engineering and the return on investment you get if you get a job in Kansas versus getting a job in California with the bachelor's.
I mean, there's a lot of things to take into account like that, but the average SAT, ACT score was about like 32 or 2340-ish. So, I mean, that's also going to skew it up, so it's even more selective. And we do have admissions caps there for pretty much every university. So it's a lot different. And UC Davis is a land grant institution like here, but their admissions are also super selective now. So obviously we can't go apples to apples. But the point still stands that as a university that's granting PhDs, we are severely underfunded.
Thoughts?
Are there any questions? I can move that we vote if there's no one who wants to speak anymore. All right, I move that we vote on Dean Dawson's $15 per credit hour tuition fee increase, $15 per credit hour increase.
Moved. A second.
Second.
I have a question. So are we still doing the whispering thing?
Keep a 2 feet distance.
No coffee breaths. I'm just kidding.
So it is going to be kind of a comical scene, but I do need everybody to stand up and
Coffee break with Olivia.
throw it in.
Can I clarify about the vote? So if yes means yes, you support the fee, no means no, you do not support the fee.
Correct.
What this is? Okay, I just want to make sure.
I know it's been moved and seconded, but we can also amend and say we recommend like a $10 increase. If we want to go back, we can do that.
Noted that a smaller amount, the dean would say that he would still allocate tenure track faculty to instructors 5 to 2.
But reducing it also reduces the total cost, so it still might offset a little bit. So it's wherever we think the good balance.
If you'd like us to go back, you can make a motion.
How are our suggestions going to be incorporated?
Yeah, so that's something that that Jonathan and I are going to look at, but a lot of like with the minutes that were taken and with some of the reporting we're going to go through, and that'll be part of our final report. The other thing we could do is that we could possibly, I know something we did last year is we sent out, Jessica and I sent out kind of our notes that we had taken basically and sent it to the committee and said, is this represented your views well? So we could do something like that.
Is it possible to hear what's going to be incorporated as suggestions before we vote, actually?
Yeah. So I missed a question I was talking to Provost Mason. So what was, you didn't sit down.
Sorry.
I rescind my motion.
Stephen, what were you saying?
Did you actually?
I have a thought. Maybe we vote, maybe we summarize the main points, or maybe this discussion has been the main points. We vote, and then depending upon how the vote comes out, we can make some sort of like summary statement saying the importance of needing to get students into class, the importance that the dean with new scholarship dollars or scholarship dollars that are freed up by Putnam, that he prioritizes needs-based scholarships instead of just block granting it all towards first-generation scholarships, or like something like that. So like we vote and then maybe make recommendations, or there are tons of other possibilities, but that's just a thought.
So it kind of depends on how the vote comes out. Either it passes, but here are the concerns, and here's the support, or it fails, and here's why it failed.
It's like a court case. There's the prevailing decision and the dissenters.
Right. Yeah. I'll tell you what, though, I think that we've talked a lot, so just it's my opinion to disagree with that's when Jonathan will be able to stick around. I just started the architecture plan design unit at 7. But anyway, but what I think would be best is if we voted tonight, we'll put together the information and we'll send it out. You can review specific wording where you can have a lot more, I guess, of an intentional say. Because either, regardless of what we talk about tonight, it's going to come back to Jonathan and I writing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And I heard somebody say something about the tenure track versus instructor. That could also be like, I think probably one of our recommendations, is that students are concerned about that. Does that clarify kind of what we're thinking?
So we have some main bullet points that we want to reiterate before we take the vote.
You're into things or are into things?
You're into things.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, I think that number one hesitation to the fee is the increase in cost of education, especially for our low-income students. That's been our, I would say, overwhelming conversation, and that there are other alternatives to. There are a lot of causes behind the reason the need for the fee, declining state support. There's conversation about university budgeting priorities, things like that. I've heard issues with, otherwise concerns with how there have been, or with the split between instructor and tenure track faculty member. So that's, a lot of students are feeling that if it's students paying, and we have the issue with class size, it means that well, that instructors are the way we need to address that. And then other concern is about outreach with the way that the what do you call it? The survey, yeah, thank you. The survey was done. And then I guess in support of it, it's that we have students that are unable to get into classes, whether bottlenecks or other issues like that. other support of the fee is about needing to grow, needing to move the university forward, about how there are no other options to do that, state funding or university dollars that don't exist. And the other support of the fee, is that there was this, like the students are aware. Oh, I guess part of the survey on the negative is the departmental versus college-wide. What am I missing? So sorry, I wasn't trying to avoid that conversation. I'm just saying, one way or another, that's going to have to be written down into a succinct format for Jonathan and I to present. So you all will be contacted about that. In fact, I might even write over spring break.
Sounds really good.
That's going to be great. Other thoughts? Things I'm missing? Things you want to consider before we vote?
I'd like to make a note about tenure track faculty versus instructors. The value of an instructor to a university is much lower than a tenure track faculty because they don't provide external opportunities, especially in terms of research and industry partnerships. So I think that needs to be taken into consideration for what's best for students in the department. And I'm very biased because I'm a graduate student, so I'm all about that research life. But I still do think that it's important to consider what a tenure track faculty brings over the long term versus an instructor. And instructors tend to leave fairly quickly too in most universities. So I think that's something to keep in mind.
And that's one of those issues I was talking about here, the two sides.
Yeah. So that came up as a concern, and I do agree it's a concern, but I want to bring up that there's another side to that for having more tenure track faculty.
I would say the recommendation we give, when we give an official recommendation, right, based on a vote, but at the same time, one of the things that we give to the president is, it is a 20, 30-page document that says you're outside of the other discussion. And we put all the minutes in there, so you can read those. Thanks, Liz. Steven.
And with the Board of Regents, won't they also see some of our minutes and vote counts as well? So
they definitely see vote counts. A lot of it's anecdotal, like for the minutes, and here's what the discussions were based on. That it also depends on if there's not a disagreement between president and hires.
Only if it moves forward.
Yes, only if it moves forward.
Yeah. But then we would disclose it.
Last year was a weird year in that regard, right? So,
it was a weird year. Probably not. Yeah, it was a weird year. Not the reason people.
So something that I want to mention is that we talked about how the college advisory committee was in on these discussions and faculty's been on these discussions, and we are representing students. So we also need to look at that. It's our role to think about each individual student and how that impacts each individual student. Because if I'm a faculty member, I'm thinking how this impacts faculty and how I'm going to have more colleagues and more research, and it's going to be a really great environment for me as faculty, and how as a alumni of this university, how, having my alma mater have this great prestigious name is their main priority, because they're thinking, hey, I have a salary, I make money, and having K-State mean a lot more is great, and in a couple of years that'll be me. But we have to think about students and how this impacts students. So that's sort of our role in this whole discussion, rather than thinking about how this impacts faculty, or how this impacts alumni, or how this impacts the Board of Regents, or how this impacts all of those. We're students. That's why we have a voice, is to represent the students. Because otherwise, all these discussions, I'm sure people have thought about a lot of the stuff we've said, but our priority should be students.
I move that we vote on this $15 per credit hour surcharge increase for the College of Engineering.
Second.
Objections? See none, come on. Yes, I sent you Lily's vote.
Jack, this is just CTC, correct?
Just CTC.
So are you putting each person's vote down in the minutes?
They'll be in the
It's a
minutes.
separate document.
Yeah, it's separate document.
Okay. Got it.
Yes, that's us.
I don't know.
All right. Which direction would you like us to whisper? Would you
Maybe on this side.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that makes sense.
give people-
Well, I think that also potentially any sort of negative.
Yeah. If I can turn this over for transparency reasons.
Oh, no. That's not really
That happened. So.
Do you guys remember we're going down?
I think maybe, I just had it amazing and all the numbers applicants.
CSI.
Oh, there's a ton of donuts on CSI. So. I spent money.
There's, I heard donuts.
Yeah, a ton of our donuts.
Yeah. Still down there, you guys?
So you're good.
What do you think? It's almost 7 o'clock. I mean, I'm gonna go.
I had 2 donuts.
Yeah, I probably should. They put some table or
I got one of those. My table and shit.
Take notes for when you say. I want to be in the classroom. I understand. It wasn't. Everything I'm learning about was for you. Yeah. How did that come up? Like, what? I don't remember. I know. Like, that was like, it was
Is there an article about cookies?
last night. Yeah.
I mean, to his credit, he does not care what anyone thinks at all.
Your name is Trenton Kennedy, right? Do you go by Trenton?
You tweeted about it.
Hey, you have a job. It's fine. What are they gonna do?
For real though, you go by Trent or Trenton.
All right.
All right, votes was yes, 11, no, 6.
That is how many? 17 out of 25.
That's
That's quorum, yeah. Cool. So next steps are TFSC will review the proposal or the recommendation from the CTC, and if there are any issues, we'll reach back out. The other thing is I'll be putting together, Jonathan and I will be putting together a document that explains why the vote came out the way it did, and for everybody's review. So, any questions? Anything else to go to the order? All right, thanks so much for being here.
Maybe we'll ask you a couple of
And thanks for
questions.
Yep.
You were against. What was the phone? I'm just going to put this close so you can take.